You know you'll have a testimony tonight. Say amen. Very, very quickly. Job chapter 36, verse 22. Job 36, 22. Behold, God exalteth by his power. Who teacheth like him? He exalted by his power. Who teacheth like him? I am speaking on the subject, the liftings of God. The liftings of God. He exalted by his power. Who teacheth like him? God is a lifter. A major assignment of the power of God is for the lifting of his people. The lifting of his people. He exalted, or he lifts people up by his power. Example, Joseph. Joseph was the slave who was the prisoner. That is double negative. It's terrible enough to be a prisoner, terrible enough to be a slave in a foreign land that God took contrary to all protocols and made him the second most important person in the most powerful earth at that time. He lifted by his power. And all that happened under 24 hours. Slept as a prisoner. Woke up next day as a prime minister. God lifted by his power. He was the one who lifted Esther. Slave girl also. Orphan. Lost father, lost mother. Was being brought up by her uncle Mordecai. Took this tiny little girl, Jew girl, village girl, and made her the first lady of the Medo-Persian Empire, stretching all the way from India to Ethiopia. All the countries in between was covered. Then that is like a subcontinent or a continent, as it were. He lifted by his power. Somebody who is said to be lifted, say aloud, amen. That was the God of Daniel. He lifted by his power. Daniel also, 17-year-old slave boy who became a major government official as a teenager and remained in office. Imagine being like a minister of education at the age of 19. And he remained there for 70 years. He served 4 kings: Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar, Darius, Cyrus, opposing kings. Why? God lifted by his power. And when he has placed you, no devil can displace you. No witch can displace you. No wizard can displace you. No force from hell can displace you. He lifted by his power. Abraham was a successful failure at the age of 75 in his father's house with a wife, no child. 0. Then God showed up and called him and made him the progenitor of the generation of the blessed. God lifted by his power. Supernatural shift also means supernatural lift. Somebody get ready, because that God who lifts by his power is about to lift you. What tools does God use to lift? What tools? Number 1, the heart of humility. The heart of humility. In James chapter 4, verse 10, he said, humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and he shall lift you up. Compulsorily, humble yourself in the sight of the Lord, and he shall lift you up. Shall. It's compulsory. 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 6. Lift happens from the heart. Humble yourselves therefore under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you or lift you in due time. No matter who prays for you, no matter who anoints you, if humility is not in place, authority can never be found. It doesn't matter who anoints you. It doesn't matter who prophesies on you. I see God make you this and that. Humility of heart. The reason is, when your authority exceeds your humility, calamity is instant. When you have been lifted beyond the capacity of your humility, calamity is immediate. Because it takes humility to sustain authority. Some people, the reason why they have not been lifted by God is not for who they are now, but for how they will behave when they have been lifted. Joseph was put in charge. I'd like you to hear this. If this is the only thing you hear tonight, it's okay. Joseph was put in charge of the whole of the prison. Genesis chapter 39, in verse 21. All the way. The Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. Verse 22. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hands all the prisoners that were in the prison. Whatever they did, he was the doer of it. That is, you are in charge of this prison. But in Genesis chapter 40 verse 4, they brought 2 prisoners under him, the butler and the baker, and the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them. All right, back up a bit to verse. And Pharaoh was wroth against 2 of his officers, against the chief of the butlers and against the chief of the bakers. And he put them in ward in the house of the captain of the guard, that is the prison, into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them. That is, these people are under your control. They are under your control. And he served them. He served people that were put under his control. That is how you know people who will go far. He served them. Whereas others are looking for who to command and shout at and insult and send here and there. He served them. God said, if this man can have this kind of heart, if I commit the whole nation to his hand, it will not enter his head. God sees how we will behave tomorrow to handle us in today. Look at Esther. When Esther became queen of the Persian Empire, in the book of Esther chapter 2 verse 20, in verse 15 and 16, she had been made queen. She had been made queen already. In verse 15 and 16, she's now number one, the first lady of the empire, the first lady of the empire. But in verse 20, Esther had not showed her kindred nor her people, as Mordecai had charged her. She was queen, but she was still listening to the uncle who brought her up. For Esther, the commandment of Mordecai, even as a queen, like as when she was brought up with him. Esther was already in charge of an empire, but had not forgotten who brought her up. She had not outgrown her root. So it was easy for God to take her there. There are some people, a little money, and they don't know their father anymore. They don't know their uncle who brought them up anymore. A little position, and the pastor is a small boy. A little relevance. Esther did the commandment of Mordecai, like as when she's still in her mind, she was still that baby that Mordecai was looking after. If you will remain a baby in your eyes, God will make you big in the eyes of men. If you will remain little in your own eyes and never allow anything to enter your head, when God changes your life, then no devil can see your end. The heart of humility. Number 2, the life of worship and praise. Habakkuk chapter 3 verse 17 to 19. He said, although the fig tree shall not blossom, no fruit in the vine. Now go to verse 18. He said, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will joy in the God of my salvation. And then the Lord is my strength. He will make my feet like hinds feet. He will make me to walk. He will lift me to my high places. If I am able to have worship, irrespective of whatever the devil wants me to feel, and I can carry praise, no devil can stop me. Do you know what praise is all about? The P stands for power. And the balance, raise. Remove P out of it, it becomes raise. The P is power. Power to be raised. That is praise. I will rejoice in the Lord. Then He will lift me to my high places. He will empower me to be raised. If you doubt me, ask David. What was it that took him to the palace? Was it his hunting? Was it his ability to kill lion and bear? No. What took him to the palace was his worship. Saul was looking for a good player, a good worshiper. In 1 Samuel chapter 16 verse 17. And they said there is a son of Jesse who has the capacity you are looking for. And he said, bring him. He will stand before me here. And in verse 21, David came to Saul. He stood before Saul and he loved him greatly, and he became his armor bearer. Your worship will take you where your certificate can't take you. Your worship will take you where your connections can't take you. Your worship will take you where your contacts can't take you. Your praise will take you where your physical beauty can't take you. Am I communicating? And so we have the heart of humility. We have the life of worship and praise. And thirdly, we have divine visitation. Whenever God steps down, lives step up. The stepping down of God is the stepping up of lives. That was what He said in Exodus chapter 3, verse 7 to 8. Exodus chapter 3, verse 7 to 8. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows, and I am come down. I am come down. I am come down to deliver them out of the land of Egypt and to bring them up. I came down so they can go up. Every time God steps down, your life step up, must step up. Divine visitation is for human elevation. I am come down that they might go up. I came down to take them up. Whatever you will do to get the visitation of God, you do it, and it steps your life up. Father, give me an encounter. Step down into my life. Step down into my situation and shift up my life. That was what happened to Gideon. God stepped down, met him by the winepress, and stepped him up. That was what happened to Mary. Blessed art thou, thou art highly favored. Luke chapter 1 from verse 26. And the Lord stepped down, and Mary's life stepped up. When God steps down, lives step up. Lord, that visitation that will step me up, I am asking for it. And what is one major tool that makes God to step down is called the covenant walk. That is our key number 4. The covenant walk. The covenant walk lifts people up. When you are a covenant walker, you and God are tight. Nothing between you and God, nothing can be held back from you between you and God. He steps you up. That was Exodus chapter 2 verse 23 and 25. And he said, it came to pass in the process of time that the king of Egypt died, and the children of Israel sighed by reason of the bondage, and they cried, and their cry came up unto God by reason of the bondage, and God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant. This coming down that we just read now happened because God remembered covenant. Every time God remembers covenant, he steps down into your situation. And when he steps down, your life step up. Covenant. Never play with covenant. It was covenant in the land of Egypt, the land of the Philistines, in Genesis chapter 26, where there was famine in the land. But Isaac sowed. God appeared to him, the God of covenant. I am the God of Abraham. That is the covenant name. Go not down to Egypt. Genesis 26 from verse 2. Remain in this land and I will bless you. And in verse 12, Isaac sowed in that land. And what was the outcome? He received in the same year 100-fold, and the Lord blessed him. And the man waxed great, went forward, and grew until he became very great. He went forward and went upward. Grew means he went upward. The covenant pushes you forward and lifts you upward. Don't play with the covenant walk. Don't play with your relationship schedule with God. Don't play with sacrificial giving. Don't play with your obligations towards God. It's a lifter of people. Is God speaking to anybody here at all? The whole place look quiet. Are you hearing anything at all? A heart of humility. The life of worship and praise. Divine visitation. The covenant walk. And finally, revelational light. He lifted by his power. Job 36:22. Who teaches like him? If you see, behold God exalted by a power, you see a colon there, which means, let me explain what I mean. He teaches like, who teaches like him? So, when God teaches you, the teaching becomes your lifting. Who teaches like him? He gives you revelation to fuel your elevation. That was what Paul said in Galatians chapter 2 verse 2, I went up by revelation. It shows you something, and that thing it shows you takes you up. Arise, shine, for your light has come. Isaiah chapter 60 verse 1. My prayer is that this fasting is not permitted to end until God shows you something from his word in revelation that will change your level. Who is saying amen? Say a louder amen. This fast is not permitted to end until you have seen something that changes your level. We'll employ one of those tools now, the tool of worship. Maybe it will give us some ideas of what we experience in the afternoon. Open up your heart and get ready, because your lifting is here. Stand up on your feet. Lift your hands high. I'd like you to worship your way to the high places. I said P-R-A-I-S-E. Praise gives you the power to be raised. Lift your hands high. Thank him for his lifting coming your way tonight. Lift your hands. Lift your hands and your voice and sing. Lord, my heart is filled.
Lord, my heart is filled with the thought of you. What you mean to me, what you've done for me. I'm alive and well just because of you. The least I can do is to pray.
Lord, my heart is filled.
Lord, my heart is filled with the thought of you. What you mean to me, what you've done for me. I'm alive and well just because of you. The least I can do is to pray.
I will praise you, Lord. I will worship you.